Not sure if this is considered paranormal, but when I get fevers as a child, I would always, in my tug-you and pain-infused state, hear a man counting in a very deep voice. He would count from 1 and up. As the numbers get larger, the voice gets louder and more intense. It started to get less frequent as I grew older, and now I do not experience it anymore. I've brushed it aside as a recurring nightmare until only recently I've learned that my sister would experience the exact same thing when she was younger as well. It's not the scariest thing, but it does send shivers down my spine trying to comprehend this. I began waking up every night around 3 a.m. feeling like something was about to hurt me. It was just this awful, knotted dread sitting in my stomach. My dog would often also wake up, hackles raised. There was a bathroom attached to my bedroom that I believe was the source of it. It had the worst energy. I always refused to use it. No matter how many times we changed the bulbs or tried to fix the wiring, the lights always flickered this ugly green color. The shower in it had a sliding door. Sometimes, when I would awaken at night, I would hear the door rattling in its frame, hard. The AC had not kicked on, and the fan was not on. It only ever happened around 3 a.m. I would lie awake, staring at the bathroom door, waiting for it to slide open. Fortunately for my sanity, it never did. The shower door rattled alone in the dark bathroom, slamming against the sides of its track, but the bathroom door itself stayed shut. I once had a friend sleep over, and he bolted awake around that same 3 a.m. time frame whilst I was fucking around on my computer. He turned to me and told me he had felt suddenly very afraid, and that he wasn't sure what had woken him up. I hadn't told him a thing about what I had been experiencing. Just before moving out, I went in to clean that bathroom to prep for the sale of the house. I heard a slight hum, like a woman singing. Nobody else was home, and no radio or television was on. I stopped to listen, as it was very quiet and very brief, and heard it again, directly in my left ear, loud and clear. I bolted outside and did not come back in until everyone was home. My mother would not let me talk to her about it. She would very angrily shut me down whenever I tried to bring it up, loudly shushing me and saying she didn't want to hear it. I think she was afraid of something. My brothers later admitted they had tried to have a ghost hunt in what they felt to be my haunted bathroom while I was away at soccer practice one afternoon. Even they were wary of it. I'm still not sure if I was just crazy or not, as nothing outrageous ever happened. I just remember the constant fear. At my mom's old apartment, I used to have this feeling I was always being watched. Then I was starting to wake up at 3 a.m. consistently. On one of the nights I had woken up, I heard someone call out my name. It was a woman's voice, but I didn't recognize it. She kept calling out my name and walking towards my bed, getting closer, but I didn't see anything. I freaked out, jumped off my bed, and ran into my brother's room. I hopped into bed with him and tried waking him up. The punk sleeps like the dead. He still sleeps like that. I heard her footsteps follow me until his doorway. After that, every time I woke up in the middle of the night, I just ran into his room and slept on the top bunk. We had bunk beds. My mother still doesn't believe that happened. Not me, but a security guard I employed when I ran a dispensary. She showed me the video. In fact, she sent it to me, and I still have it on my phone. It's a camera mounted in her young daughter's room. She's playing on her bed, which suddenly slides away from the wall about a foot. The daughter then jumps off the bed and runs out of the room to tell her mom. Later, the daughter randomly got up, walked towards and out the front door while the mom was calling after her. Daughter snapped out of it once mom made physical contact. She had no memory of how she got outside. So, security guard calls a priest who literally goes by and tries to do like an exorcism on the apartment or whatever. About a week later, an electrical outlet behind a couch that she never used caught fire and the whole apartment building burnt down. I'm usually a pretty big skeptic, but I don't know how to explain the video.
Attended a school back in 2013 to 2014 that was so haunted I still don't believe it. Me and many other students, but also some of the teachers working there, saw things go flying in the air, heard footsteps, were sometimes touched by something we couldn't see, and had various new and expensive equipment. Myself, I had an iPhone 5 and a fully spec'd late 2012 iMac at the time, fail whenever the ghost entered the room we were in, and so on. The various tech problems all disappeared as soon as I left the school and took my stuff back home with me. BTW. The iMac still in use today by my uncle, and he experiences no issues with it to this date. So to my first serious experience at the school. One night I was alone with a girl at my student house. Everyone else was partying down at the school building, when suddenly we started hearing footsteps from the attic upstairs. It was a tiny room up there, that was only big enough for storing some tour and hiking equipment, like a few backpacks and such. After maybe half a minute or so, the footsteps started coming down the stairs from the attic. At this point, me and my friend went dead silent, and we were both just staring towards the door that went to the attic. The footsteps came all the way down, and went into the living room where we were sitting. At this point, the sound of the footsteps switched from sounding like someone walking around in big boots, into what to me sounded more like someone coming wet and barefoot out of the shower/tub. When the sound got to the middle of the room, which was right in front of where me and this girl were sitting, it stopped, and for a few brief moments, there was nothing but dead silence. The girl and I just looked at each other for like 5 to 10 seconds, before my eyes caught something going on behind the girl's back. We were sitting in a couch together, and behind her were these huge windows that went from the floor and all the way up to the ceiling. They had some seriously huge blinds as well, and so I watched this pretty heavy lead thing that certain industrial blinds have, be lifted all the way up from the floor, to just above the middle of the window. There it kept floating in the air for about 5 seconds, before it was punched into the window with such force, that I'm sure the window would have broke if it hadn't been for those thick blinds protecting it. The girl didn't see this as it happened behind her back, but you can be sure that she heard the noise. In fact, she got so scared that she literally jumped into my lap screaming. That's the moment when I stopped trying to give possible natural explanations to everything paranormal.
Reminds me of the first real paranormal experience I've had. Actually, I've only experienced 2 things in my life that I can't explain. This was the first, and scariest. I was a college student at the time, and to save money I was living in a large room that was converted from a communal living space. It didn't have a door per se. Instead, it had several layers of very heavy sound-deadening blanketing material hung from the frame, so that it provided sight privacy and sound privacy. You couldn't really hear anyone on the other side of it, and any sound that did come through was extremely muffled. All the blankets that were hung in that doorway must have weighed at least 15-20 pds, if not more. Never in my time living in that place did anyone ever open a door on the opposite side of those curtains and create a draft that could even budge them. That's how heavy they were. Yet one night I was sitting on the sofa facing that curtain entrance with my girlfriend, and that curtain rose up into the air, as if an invisible person around 4 feet tall, or a taller child, had lifted it up, and stood there, peeking in our direction as we sat on the couch, watched us for a good 4 to 5 seconds, and then left the way they came. My girlfriend sat there staring dumbfounded, as did I. It definitely was not the wind, as the curtain was too heavy, and wind wouldn't have held the curtain still in the same position for 5 seconds before slowly letting it fall. It looked exactly like an invisible short person had come in to see what we were doing. My only explanation to this day is my girlfriend's mom was really into tarot cards, summoning spirits and trying to predict the future, etc. I don't know about that stuff, and until that moment didn't believe in it, but I think the entities that she was communicating with hitchhiked on members of her family on this side of reality and followed her daughter to my place that night. The mom didn't live far from me. We were neighbors, and that's how I met her daughter.